be his birthday today. I heard at the beginning some people singing happy birthday to our NEC. We welcome that good gesture and happy birthday, Honorable NEC. We also would like to welcome the chair of SALGA, Umamum Kulisi, who is also going to be a member of the panel. And added to that, we've got two chief directors from COGTA, Ms. Joey Krishnan and Mr. Stelo Duma, who are going to lead us in the discussions as the key panelists that will do presentations on behalf of COGTA. Our program then will be as follows. We'll have a presentation by the NEC for COGTA for 15 minutes, followed by the two presentations from Mr. Stelo Duma and Joey Krishnan, which both will take 30 minutes each, and will then hand over to the chair of SALGA to also comment on the topic, and will then close with discussions and question and answer session, which will then facilitate, which I will facilitate as the moderator. We've got rules of the game. Please, can you mute if you are not on the floor? Also, if possible, if you can also switch off your cameras so that we don't see other things that are happening behind the scenes. The cameras that will be on are only for those that are on the floor, please. I would appreciate if we could then have those rules observed. Our topic for today is local government response to COVID-19, which is an interesting topic in light of the work that has been done by local government in the field of in trying to combat the effects of the pandemic. The discussions will therefore center on the impact, both negative and positive, of the pandemic on local government. And this will also include the positive interventions that are currently underway, rolled out by local government, and the contributions from the various sectors towards the work that we are doing. The panelists will look at the roles and responsibilities of elected officials, municipal workers, and members of the public in ensuring that municipal finances do not collapse as a result of the negative economic impact caused by COVID-19. We are having this discussion on the backdrop of the AG report that was released yesterday, and it was not a good picture that was painted. And on that note, we need to ensure we account for public funds, and we also indicate to the members the work that has been done. It appeared from the report that we don't have the right hands at the till, according to the AG, and there is also abuse of public funds. So we need to highlight that in the presentations that will follow, and we also need to ensure that we do not continue to cause depression on the communities. The effects of COVID are on themselves causing a lot of panic and depression, and we need, as local government, to then ensure we give hope to the people. We also assist in terms of economic recovery. May I then hand over to the MEC for COGTA, or MEC Hlomuka, to then give us the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DDG Mkujini, the moderator. Want to extend our greetings to the fellow panelists and all our online viewers present in this engagement. We really want to thank for finding time to participate in today's webinar, deliberating on the topical issues within the sphere of local government, as what we do as COGTA as part of the policy making and responsive service delivery, are deliberating on such issues in a web or in an online engagement as a reflection upon the new normal since the COVID-19 challenges. We are now living in the COVID-19 world, and we've had to adapt to a new circumstances. Today webinar, which features the chairperson of SALGA, Councillor Mama Mkolise, who's a district mayor of King Cetshwayo, and our local government experts as panelists within the department, who will illustrate, as we have already indicated, moderator, the chair, who are going to illustrate how the KZN COGTA are adapting in the new environment in local government that is defined by the COVID-19. Our panelists will make presentation on the wide range of the municipal issues they have encountered and they have had to respond on the swift and meaningful in their respective field of expertise. Our chairperson of SALGA, Councillor Mkhulisa, will also talk about the role of councillors in the COVID-19 world that has been characterized by the restriction of physical engagement, but also by the undiminished demand for the delivery of service delivery by the municipalities, since the service delivery is not under lockdown. In this context, moderator, she will also deliberate on innovation that is now required on the part of the municipalities when providing a relief to customers and businesses as a result of this COVID-19. One of the local government specialists, Mr. Tuma, who is seconded to Umsunduze as an administrator, but we have drawn him to ensure that he share an experience in ensuring that municipalities improve oversight of their function of their functions as in COVID-19 world, as councillors work in the challenging environment where limits on physical meetings and interactions are imposed by the authorities. And finally, Ms. Joey, the Chief Director in the department who deal with the financial management, will also refer to the expertise in the municipal finance to talk about the financial impact of COVID-19 on the municipalities' need to enhance the revenue collection in these difficult times when the restriction on economic and activity have resulted in the major revenue shortfall as the audit outcome indicate. Yesterday, viewers, we received an outcome from the Auditor General, which released the auditor outcomes for 2018-2019. We show a slightly overall improvement. Hence, we have already indicated that not a good picture for the province. Hence, we don't have a cause to celebrate it, though we improved slightly. We'll be meeting with all the provincial mayors and the senior management of all 54 municipalities to deal with the issues that have been raised by the Auditor General, especially that have been raised by the Auditor General. As a provincial government, we are committed in supporting municipalities as defined in the section 154 of the Constitution of the Republic, who are an independent sphere of local government, as they seek to improve their audit outcome. The measures have been implemented by the department in conjunction with the provincial treasurer to monitor the implementation of the audit report plans. This includes the appointment of the financial expert to assist the municipalities to improve their audit outcome, as we have appointed them as a department to assist the municipalities. This intervention will ensure that audit improvement strategies are implemented and a more transfer of skills and takes place at the management of municipal finances, as we are aware that there are challenges in terms of managing the finances of the municipalities. Hence, we have appointed the financial experts to assist the municipalities as a department. To fight against spread of COVID-19, as the KZN provincial government, in which I serve as an MEC for COGTA, who have indeed been in the forefront of effort to limit the spread of this novel coronavirus in our communities since the earliest day of the COVID-19 pandemic in KZN in early as March 2020. We have deployed in our respective capacity in different portfolios all our available resources, both human and financial resources, towards one goal, and we did this with the determination to save the human life, because we have a responsibility as a caring government to ensure that we save the life of our people in this country, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. Following the National Declaration of Disaster on the 15th of March 2020, we instructed all the government institutions in KZN, including municipalities and traditional institutions, to limit their stakeholder meetings and public gathering and educate and sensitize the communities about the implication of the declaration of the state of disaster, which include the national lockdown, which happened from on the 27th of March 2020, as pronounced by the President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa. We have worked closely with all the stakeholders in the province, and we have been in the daily communication with all the decision makers regarding the latest pronouncement of the provincial COVID-19 Command Council, which is chaired by the Honorable Prima Ukuzeni, the Prima of KwaZulu-Natal. We have instructed all the sector departments in the provincial government, as well as the municipalities, to ensure that all basic services such as healthcare facilities, law enforcement, or the provision of water, electricity continue as before, because we believe that service delivery is not under lockdown. We also instructed all the leaders of this institution to streamline their fundings and their procurement procedure towards the provision of emergency COVID-19 equipment such as the PPEs and deep cleaning of the public space, as well as necessary maintenance and the repairs of essential infrastructure. With COVID-19 being primary as a medical emergency, our Department of Health has done a great job in facilitating the operation of screening, testing, and quarantine sites across the province. Our law enforcement agencies have ensured law and order during these difficult times. Our Department of Education has overseen the preparation of school for the gradual resumption of teaching and learning. As COGTA, we have continued to distribute water tankers to areas with outstanding challenges in the delivery of water to ease the pressure on distressed communities. I'm pleased to report in this forum that all the provincial government institutions and all our key stakeholders have heeded the call to action with all the emergency it deserves. Our Honorable Prima, our MECs, our mayors, traditional leaders have, from their various public platforms, called for compliance with the wearing of masks and use the hand sanitizers, social distance, or the need to disinfect our public space, such as government building. It is clear that without this collective effort, the impact of COVID-19 on our communities would be much devastating. Based on our day-to-day experience in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic as it unfolded in the context of our province in general, or our municipalities in particular, we have, as the KZN COGTA, drawn a collective work of the provincial government to formulate a recovery plan to support the recovery of local government post-lockdown. It is based on the 5 pillars, which are governance, finance, basic service delivery, performance management, and the newly launched district development model by the president of this country. We have also engaged with all 55 municipalities to develop their own customized post-lockdown recovery plans. Going forward, to mitigate the possibility that many local industries might close down permanently post-COVID-19, and to ensure job losses, our municipalities will be supported by infrastructure development and a measure to support surviving industries, attracting investment and reducing the unnecessary bureaucracy. Will be supporting municipalities in reviewing their informal economy policies. Will also facilitate the completion of infrastructure projects in our CSC, municipal infrastructure and small town program. Admitted these are monumental tasks, but judging by the level of determination we have seen from our government institution in this province, I'm confident that we will succeed. Looking to the future, we'll expect great efficiency from our institution based on how they have performed in the midst of the deadly pandemic that has simultaneously multiply our challenges and restricted our revenue. We have witnessed countless examples of outstanding crisis management. We must now ensure that this and to become a new normal in improved efficiency across all government. I now invite all the fellow panelists to present their respective presentation, and I urge our online viewers to listen carefully and engage the presenters meaningfully during this time. It is my hope that this engagement will not only define our challenges during these difficult times, but also outline the workable solution for the future of our sphere of local government in this province. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Honorable MEC, for those opening remarks. The tone has been set for all of us. Service delivery cannot stop because of the lockdown. The MEC has given his directives on that. He's also indicated we are living in a COVID-19 world, so we need to respond swiftly as local government. That is what is expected from everyone, including our councillors in their oversight role. Physical limits are there, but local government has become innovative, and this is why we're having these webinars and izimbizo over the virtual systems. So we need to then respond in terms of our ICT. The MEC has also alluded to the fact that there will be revenue shortfalls moving forward because people are on lockdown and they cannot pay for services. But as local government, we need to then put a recovery plan in place, and the MEC has outlined some of the provisions of the recovery plan. The MEC has also alluded to the need for economic recovery, and he has touched on a very important sector of the informal economy, which is going to rescue us moving forward in terms of job creation. So we need to put strategies in place to ensure the informal economy is supported, and local government has a huge role to play in terms of the support to the informal economy. On that note, can I then hand over to Mr. Sicelo Duma, the Chief Director for Municipal Governance and Administration, who is going to present for 20 minutes on improving municipal oversight in a COVID-19 world. He's going to project his presentation, and let's all listen and we can ask questions after. Over to you, Mr. Duma.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good afternoon to yourself. Good afternoon to the Honorable MEC, the Chairperson of SALGA, Councillor Mkhulisi, fellow panelists, Mrs. Krishnan, as well as those who are listening in various platforms. Chairperson, the presentation I'm going to do is a presentation that talks to the improvement of oversight during this lockdown or during COVID-19. I'll be guided by yourself, Chairperson, whether you can see the presentation on your side. I have uploaded it.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. I can see it. Hopefully others can also see it. Please go ahead. Thank you.
I'm going to take you through these 6 topics. The presentation is not very long. Oversight, Chairperson, as you know, in local government does not operate in the same manner in which it operates in parliament as well as in legislatures, where the executive and the legislative functions are separated. In local government, the constitution is clear that both the legislative and the executive function reside with the municipal council itself. So it becomes difficult to manage issues of oversight. But even so, the constitution as well as legislation require that we must, as municipalities, foster accountability. We must ensure that there is ethics and there is transparency in the manner in which we conduct governance in municipalities. Chairperson, you will also know that the oversight in government as such, or in the public sector, is defined in many ways. But the South African Parliament has defined it as a constitutionally mandated function of the legislative organs of state to scrutinize as well as to oversee the executive function of the various organs of state. And the Constitution in Section 152, Chairperson, goes on to say that local government must provide a democratic and accountable local government. It must provide services in a sustainable manner. It must also ensure that there is social and economic development. It must promote a safe and healthy environment. It must also make sure that there is involvement of communities in the affairs of local government. And that is an important element, Chairperson, in ensuring that there is oversight, as you will see just now. COVID-19, Chairperson, as you have said, and the MEC has said, has brought about new challenges for local government, but there are also opportunities. And local government from now on must look at oversight in a different way. We must learn how to do oversight at arm's length, which I call here virtual oversight. You will know that in local government, you have many structures within and outside municipalities that are responsible for different levels of oversight. Within the municipality, you have MPECs, for instance, audit committees, portfolio committees, and so on. Outside, you have the AG, you have CBOs, your ratepayers associations, and so on. All of these structures are important in ensuring that there is oversight in local government or in our municipalities. You will also know, Chairperson, that when the COVID-19 started, the Minister of Local Government issued directions in which she directed that municipalities should not hold meetings. Subsequent to that, on the 6th of May, she issued new directions, and in those directions, she determined that municipalities must conduct their meetings by video conferencing or teleconferencing only, Chairperson. And we have since seen that most municipalities in the province have complied. The difficulty is that both the Constitution and legislation require that when municipalities have meetings, those meetings must be open to the public, especially when the municipalities are approving their budgets and their IDPs and so on. And so how do the public participate in the affairs or in the meetings of municipal councils in a virtual situation? And we know that local government is responsible for the provision of a range of services, Chairperson, and we also know that local government also collects money from the public, both for services that would have been rendered and also administers the grants that national and provincial government gives to local government. So the public has an interest in what local government does with that money and how they spend it and in what kind of functions they spend them on. So oversight, therefore, becomes an important element of local government, and municipalities must comply with certain requirements, and the public, as well as the structures that I've mentioned, are there to make sure that the local government does comply. We have empirical evidence, Chairperson, that suggests that in municipalities, oversight mechanisms are generally weak. And we have, for instance, observed since 2016 local government elections that your MPECs are not where they should be by now at this stage of the term. We still get requests from local government to come and conduct workshops, come and conduct trainings of these structures. And you would think that since this is almost the last year of their term, they should be where they should be. But be that as it may, you will know that internally in municipalities, we regard the municipal council itself, its executive committee, the portfolio committees, your MPEC, and so on. All of these structures are regarded as oversight structures, and they provide a certain level of oversight within municipalities. And outside the municipalities, you have the structures that I've mentioned there, the media, the Auditor General, even Chairperson, the COGTA departments and the Provincial Treasury Department. Those are oversight. They provide oversight to local government. And in administering its oversight responsibility, municipal councils will normally hold meetings to consider reports from management. They consider reports from the executive and other internal functionaries. And they also do what you may call in situ visits, that is on-site visits, to make sure that whatever is on-site is corroborating what is contained in management reports. But there's also legislation, there's policy frameworks that are there that are used by municipalities to make sure that oversight is provided, and municipalities are conducting their functions in a manner that is consistent with legislation, consistent with the Constitution. But there are also requirements to do regular reporting. Some of them are monthly reports, some of them are annual reports, like your annual financial statements, your annual report itself, as well as your performance reports. All of these are mechanisms, they are procedures, they are systems, they are tools that enhance oversight in municipalities. Chairperson, looking at COVID-19 now, how does it interrupt? Because technology has that thing of interrupting the status quo. How has COVID-19 forced municipalities to adopt or to adapt to technology faster than they would otherwise have done? Because as I've said earlier on, the minister has determined that municipalities must conduct their meetings by virtual means. It means you can't have contact meetings. So municipalities had to quickly learn how to use Zoom, learn how to use Microsoft Teams in order to be able to hold these meetings. But these tools have been there for some time. It's just that the assimilation to these tools has been slow. For some reason, your councillors, management, they prefer contact meetings, but we are somehow now forced by circumstances to adopt these technologies in order to conduct the same meetings that we had conducted. But you do have municipalities, I cite here only Newcastle and Matlangeni. There are a few more other municipalities that already supplied their councillors with these tools, your tablets, your laptops, even before COVID-19. It's just that they were not using it for virtual meetings, but they were already using these tools, Chairperson. And in the past 8 weeks, municipal managers and municipal officials have been raising with COGTA some legalities around virtual meetings, particularly the issue of public participation as a big issue. But there is also anecdotal evidence, Chairperson, that we have seen that suggests that administrators, officials in other words, have assimilated much quicker than their principals, namely councillors, to the new technologies introduced by COVID-19. Obviously, this is not surprising because your administration on a day-to-day basis, they are using these tools, whereas councillors use contact meetings in the main. We did, Chairperson, at the start of COVID-19, establish a WhatsApp group, for instance, for municipal managers, and that is becoming a very, very effective tool of communication between the department and municipalities. The information is shared and we get feedback instantaneously from these municipalities. The introduction of these new technologies has also brought about positive outcomes in that municipalities are saving on S&T. You would know that eThekwini and Msunduzi, for instance, would normally host meeting after meeting of officials, of councillors traveling from different parts of the province to these cities. So the municipalities are saving on the one hand. Of course, a counter argument could be raised that says the economy is suffering because the facilities that are in these cities are no longer getting the business that they were getting, and therefore they are shedding jobs. But this is technology, and technology is disruptive in its nature. And in this particular instance, the disaster that has befallen the whole world has forced us into adapting to these new technologies in order to conduct oversight in municipalities. So there are, Chairperson, in my view, both advantages and disadvantages for municipal councils and their committees in conducting oversight in the new way, or virtual oversight, as I've called it. But one of the advantages is that you can now have more meetings than you would otherwise have been able to do because of traveling. These days, you can have 3-4 meetings in a day over these virtual tools, and the meetings are fairly effective. Chairpersons, you can record them easily. Traveling, as I said, the costs have been reduced. But there's also the reduction in the cost of printing because you are no longer printing paper agendas. The delivery of these agendas is very expensive. And the cost of setting up consultation sessions is also eliminated. And the downside, Chairperson, is that the meetings are available, virtual meetings are available to those who have access to technology. So the public itself is affected negatively by this technology. And naturally, your rural parts of the province, just like anywhere else in the world, they're still struggling with broadband, your third generation technology. Whereas in your bigger centers, your Johannesburg, your Cape Town, you are already talking about introducing the 5th generation technology, your 5G. So again, it means that rural areas will lag behind, but they will catch up with time, Chairperson. External oversight structures, Chairperson, such as the media, and they have more advanced technologies than municipalities. So they seem to be ahead of municipalities. In a way, this is not a negative, but it is a positive. But to municipalities, it might mean that they are coming behind your media, which is not a desirable situation. In the extreme, some employees may become redundant, and if they can't be reskilled, then that becomes a problem, especially employees who are involved in assisting municipal councils with conducting oversight, particularly where such oversight activities are based on contact meetings and contact sessions and contact site visits and so on. You will see that the AG going forward will most probably require municipalities to submit the documents by emails and so on, and some municipalities will probably struggle with that. But beyond that, Chairperson, legislation, your procedures, your policies must also adapt to the new normal of virtual oversight. If I may make an example, in May, we hurriedly, COGTA and SALGA prepared generic rules for municipalities how to conduct oversight meetings. You will be aware that eThekwini municipality is in court as we speak now, and part of that court battle that they are fighting now has to do with the manner in which they conducted a virtual meeting where they approved the budget. So there will be these challenges, Chairperson. In the case of Msunduzi, we have a challenge from the Ratepayers Association or Association of Ratepayers. They are saying that we have not included them adequately in the public participation processes for the IDP and the budget. And we have information, Chairperson, that in several municipalities, unions are complaining about being excluded from virtual interviews, and they have objected in some cases to municipalities conducting disciplinary inquiries using virtual means. So which is also to be expected since these are new technologies. And you would know, Chairperson, that we are in the process together with the national government of reviewing the Structures Act, the Systems Act, and the Municipal Electoral Act. All of these processes, when they started, they did not anticipate the fact that we would need to rely on technology so much in order to conduct oversight, Chairperson. So municipalities have to change bylaws. They have to change internal policies and procedures to adapt to the new normal, Chairperson. The Auditor General has to change the way they do things as well. They have to rely more now on people who are not just auditors, but who also understand technology. So they will not only be auditing the actual ICT in the municipality, they will also be looking at whether the tools that municipalities are using for oversight purposes are adequate and reliable. You will know that there were issues about Zoom recently, and there was a parliamentary meeting in May where somebody posted some obscene pictures and stuff like that, and how they got into the meeting, I really don't know. You would know there was also an official of IDT who was participating in a meeting like we are doing today, and apparently or allegedly, and you can see in the pictures, the person was half naked. So those are the challenges that are going to be there with technology, and but with time and with municipalities assimilating to this technology, things will improve. So the other area that the AG will most probably be interested in is how do municipalities use technology to involve communities in the affairs of the municipality, public participation in other words. And the Constitution is clear, it is authoritative in that regard, that should happen regardless of the situation we face. I spoke about the media, that they are more advanced than municipalities when it comes to these technologies, Chairperson. But it's not only municipalities.
2 minutes to wrap up, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's not only municipalities. National government also has to adapt. The provincial government also has to adapt to this new way of doing things. And Sunduzi recently conducted a meeting where they went for 2 hours not knowing that there are other people participating in the meeting who were actually not invited, Chairperson. Chairperson, this was just showing you that connectivity is an issue. If you look at the world on the picture on your left, and you look at Africa, South Africa, of course, is more advanced than other African countries when it comes to connectivity. Rural connectivity in particular In the Eastern Cape, they have a place called Mankosi, where the community, with the assistance of the University of the Western Cape, has set up their own network. This can be done in KZN as well. Chairperson, in a nutshell, I'm saying municipalities must adapt their systems, their policies, their procedures to the new reality that virtual oversight is here to stay. Secondly, municipalities must also adjust their business plans, their IDPs, their SDBIPs, and their budgets to accommodate the requirements for virtual oversight. And for instance, they must provide tools of trade. They must also provide video conferencing facilities. But further than that, Chairperson, they must also augment their policies, their systems, so that they accommodate the new reality. There are technologies such as drones that can be used easily by municipalities to take pictures and videos of construction sites and events instead of councillors going out there. Municipalities should also promote where possible the extension of connectivity infrastructure in remote areas, rural areas in particular, Chairperson, so that communities can participate in the affairs of the municipalities as required by the Constitution. Chairperson, with regards to this connectivity, I want to indicate that the MEC in his budget speech did say that your community service centers will now have Wi-Fi. So, which is a good thing, because then connectivity is going to reach even the remote rural areas of the province. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Duma. Thank you for the insights. I think it shows you've got the hands-on experience at local government level, and you do understand the challenges that are faced by local government and also in communities. I think the message was clear: adapt or die. That's the reality that we've been told, and is also indicated as we rebuild, we need to build back better, which is the motto from the disaster management perspective. Mr. Duma also alluded to the issue of ICT, and it looks like we need a mass rollout of ICT, especially in our rural communities, if we are to respond effectively to the virtual world that we are going to be living in. It also looks like we need to assist our SMMEs and communities in order to get a stake in the rollout of the ICT and as well as broadband. So there are so many opportunities that he has presented, and we need to take those forward. Guests, please don't forget to send your questions on the chat room and on Facebook. We've got a team that is waiting to capture those so that at the end of the session, the teams can respond to your questions. I see already some people are posting. Please go ahead and continue posting. We are capturing those. Mr. Duma, thank you. Let me release you for now. We'll call you back after Joey's presentation. We'll then allow the Chief Director, Municipal Municipal Finance to take us through the financial impact of COVID-19 on municipalities. Mr. Duma indicated the needs on the ground. If we are going to be virtual, it means we need to invest in the systems that will allow us to be virtual. But what is the impact in terms of the finances? Can we afford as local government to go that route? And what is the impact in terms of revenue collections, given that we're under lockdown and communities could not go to pay for services? Joe, you've got 20 minutes to take us through. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to the MEC, the Chairperson of SALBC, for convening this webinar. My greetings to all of our viewers and in Facebook land and on YouTube. Thank you. As indicated by the Chairperson, I will be talking to you really around the issue of financial management in local government and the impact that COVID-19 has actually had on particularly our municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. So Chairperson, just please confirm for me that you can in fact see the slideshow on the screen?
Yes, from my side, we can. Please put it on slideshow. Thank you. We can see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the topic is municipal revenue enhancement at a time of economic hardship. And I really don't need to indicate the extent of economic hardship that we are feeling, not just as local government, but as a country at large. I think the general economic impact of COVID-19 has touched all of our communities. It has particularly been felt by municipalities because there has been a non-payment factor. Our people really just have been out of work. They have been laid off. The businesses have closed. They have not worked for the past 4 months. And we are experiencing financial distress that are felt also by communities and businesses. Our revenue impact has been significant, and I'll show you some of the figures on that score, partly also because we have been forced as local government now to provide an uninterrupted supply of water and electricity. So we've not been able to disconnect where there has been non-payment because we've got to ensure the safety of our communities. We've also been unable to disconnect because we can't be walking around for practical reasons and principal reasons disconnecting for non-payment. On the macroeconomic front, I think it's important for us to find ourselves in the bigger picture. And government action saves lives. It intensifies the economic, social, and political impact. I'm going to particularly talk about the economic impact, but it cannot be divorced from all of the other issues that are around the COVID-19 virus. The health impact is significant. I think we know that. Our social impact, the social impact, the compact that we have as local government with communities is also going to be affected because without money, we cannot meet the demands out there. And as a result, we find that stability might also be affected with more social protests. Of course, we want our communities to understand that the impact of COVID-19 has really also affected us as local government, and that we have had to respond appropriately to that as well. The profile of the country in terms of jobs and salary levels also impacts obviously on the income that we generate as local government. We find that there's about and this is statistics from the Cape Town UCT, statistics around 17 million people are under 3,500 Rand per month, and you'll see that on the slide. And then you see that total wages and salaries over the last 4 months has dropped by 30%. That means that the impact on our communities impacts on our revenue. We have also suffered then a loss of income, and we have increasing indigence in our community. So we need to respond to that. We have a legal and policy requirement to provide free basic water and free basic electricity. Responsibility to deal with our informal trade sector. And we need to now again look at the socio-economic profile within our municipalities. We did a study as COGTA because one of the things as part of our post-lockdown recovery plan was to assess the revenue impact of COVID-19. And we did a survey across our 54 municipalities wanting to get at least a 20% sample or 11. We got 14 municipalities who responded to this. And we've looked at the revenue losses for the months of April to June in Rand value. And we did a comparison with the past revenue collection trends in the prior year. And you see there, Umgungundlovu district lost 12.5 million Rand in revenue in just these few months. Mpofana municipality, which is already a municipality under significant distress, has lost 8 million Rand. Impendle municipality, a smaller, more rural municipality, has lost lesser revenue, but relative to its own income, it still remains significant. And those are the figures. All municipalities have lost monies. A large amount lost by the Newcastle municipality, 60 million Rand. an amount that is as a result also of businesses that have closed, impacting on the municipality, and then the lower consumption levels in water and electricity, and the inability to cover those costs. We looked at the largest revenue generators in the province, eThekwini, Msunduzi, and Umhlatuze, and again, the impact has been significant. The total revenue that was collected in 2019 by eThekwini was 6.43 billion. It now has collected 6.12 billion, a decline by 314 million rand. Electricity shrunk by 205 million rand. Refuse was under-collected by 13.4 million. And you'll see there that overall, there has been a collection rate reduction from 95%, which is within the norm, to 77.87%, which is below the norm for local government. That phenomenon also finds expression at Msunduzi municipality, where although our billing and collection, our billing increased, our collections decreased by 4%. Similarly, across the 3 months, you will see the figures reflected there. At Umhlatuze municipality, last year, this time, we had a collection rate of 104%. And now in May this year, our collection rate dropped significantly to 66%. The rand values are also equally phenomenal. Total payments in our municipality at Umhlatuze decreased by 51 million rand. Electricity consumption decreased. And of course, that is one of the largest revenue streams of the municipality. Water consumption also decreased. And the total billing decreased as a result of consumption level was 29 million rand. So you see that the revenue impact on local government has really been under pressure. The other issue is that apart from the loss of revenue, we have had to increase our expenditure. We needed to cover the costs of COVID-19 to ensure the health and safety of our citizens and to reduce the risk of transmission. We've spent money on urgent repairs and refurbishment of water and sanitation infrastructure. We've spent money on sanitization of public transport facilities and other municipal public facilities. We have, like everybody else, had to purchase scanners, hand washing facilities, hand sanitizers. We've had to fund the personal protective equipment for our staff. And we've had to also remodel some of our municipal owned facilities to provide for quarantine sites. As at the 26th of June, and this is only for the period April to June, we have spent provincially across all of our 54 municipalities a total amount of 596.5 million rand on COVID-19. Now, revenue loss plus the increased expenditure as a result of that has called for us to really do things differently. Mayors have tabled reports on COVID-19 expenditure at councils. We still, although we understand the impact, we still have to implement our credit control and debt collection policies prudently. Those who can pay must pay. And we really want to take this opportunity to beg our consumers to pay if you can afford it. Because the poorest of the poor is where we need to, at this point in time, focus our efforts. We need to review our budgets and cut costs. We need to assist municipal revenue by the payment of government debt. There has been a significant drive to pay government debt. We've identified challenges and we are dealing with those. The president announced a 20 billion rand relief package for local government across the country. There has been an increase in the equitable share to all municipalities to supplement the revenue losses. The municipal infrastructure allocations have been reprioritized. And we have been instrumental also as a department in providing technical infrastructure and support in the form of water tankers, static tanks, and so on. And we've always encouraged our municipalities to apply a conservative approach when projecting revenues into the future. The municipal infrastructure grant has been amended to allow for the payment of reimbursement to municipalities, but we have not yet seen the allocations by the national department. There have been additional allocations under the equitable share. So of the 20 billion rand that the president promised, 11 billion rand went to municipalities through the equitable share, and just over 9 billion rand has been repurposed through the existing conditional grants. KZN portion of that 11 billion rand is 2.1 billion rand. So we are fairly pleased that the province has received a significant share of that amount that the president had promised. I won't go through the details on each of these slides. You will find them on our Facebook page afterwards, and you can engage on that. But that provides the adjustments made per district through the equitable share. So in total, the Ugu district got an additional amount of 170 million, Umgungundlovu an amount of 201 million, Utukela district an amount of 167.5 million, Umzinyathi 145 million, Amajuba just over 100 million, Zululand 200 million, and Umkanyakure district 188 million. King Cetshwayo also got an additional 197 million, and Wall district 143 million, and in total that makes 0.1 KZN. But is this really enough? This funding, primarily in any event, is being used to fund, and it was allocated on the basis of the indigent and poverty indices as part of the equitable share formula. So we've got to be resilient. We are still in the phase where we have to still be resilient. We will have to deal with recovery, and we will have to renew ourselves as local government as we go forward. And some of the strategies we can look at are really rapidly recovering our revenue, rebuilding our operations, rethinking the organization, as Mr. Duma has already alluded to, and accelerating digital adoption to enable the reimagination of local government. And I'll go through very briefly some of these issues. So speed matters. We've lost a lot of money already. We need to actually recover our revenue very, very quickly. That means that we must have a small business mindset. We've got to run ourselves like businesses. Action is important. We've got to act rather than lament and spend time researching and testing. Humans are at the core. We have to rethink our operating model. We have to look at better channels to run our business and how people can best work. We've got to accelerate digital technology and analytics, combine new sources of data, satellite imaging, and use these platforms that we have. We've got to look at our ecosystem and our adaptability. So, you know, it's a crisis, and we have to look at crisis-related disruptions in supply chains and channels of adaptability. As we go back into the MIG infrastructure spending, you may find that large companies that have been closed during this time are unable to provide us with things like cement, you know, and some of the equipment that we might need to actually deliver in terms of our infrastructure. We need to respond rapidly, and we need to identify and prioritize our revenue opportunities. So even though these revenue opportunities have been constrained now, we need to use the digital platforms to deal with how we engage our consumers. We cannot post bills anymore. We can send you SMSs, we can send you electronic accounts. Those are some of the things that we need to move speedily on. We need to also look at our tariffs. We need to look at the relief that we offer based on new data. What is our indigent profile looking like? How much more do we have to spend on indigents? We need to reallocate spending, create flexible payment terms, and then digitize customer payment payment channels, and automate processes. We've got to rebuild operations. There has to be almost a regionalization of supply chains. There has to be greater workforce training and dual or even triple sourcing. I mean, staff have to do multiple jobs. We've got to accelerate end-to-end value chain digitization. We've got to embrace the future work, the fourth industrial revolution. We've got to take action. We need to move fast, and we need to plan our operations better. So we need to find internal efficiencies, we need to improve our planning, and we need to ensure that our IDPs and our budgets, therefore, are able to respond to some of these new areas. Who are we then as local government in this crisis? How do we respond? How do we work?
2 minutes, 2 minutes to wrap up.
Thank you, Chair. And how do we grow? We have to have a profound appreciation for matching the right talent regardless of hierarchy in the most critical times. We found that small, nimble working teams actually work extremely well. And then utilizing the digital age. And I won't dwell on this too much because Mr. Duma has covered it. In conclusion then, there's hardly opportunity really for local government for enhancing revenue. We've had lockdown, we've had economic pressures. But it means that we must therefore quickly protect our existing revenue streams. It means that we need to urgently reevaluate our consumer profile. We will be urgently reviewing our tariff setting models and our approaches. We need to consider relief measures for the poor through our Property Rates Act, through our indigent policies. We need to embrace technology and become more efficient, because as we become more efficient, we save costs. We need to save money, and this means cutting costs. Let us, I think, review all of our positions. Let us be more responsible, ensuring that we contribute positively by playing our part as communities, as local government, and as provincial and national government at large. Chairperson, I thank you for this opportunity. Let us hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. I think it's clear the financial impact of COVID has been outlined clearly in the presentation. The impact is not just on local government, it's also on the business and on the community. And we need to work together to find a common ground as partners. Both government and private sector, we now need to work together to ensure we deliver the services under the circumstances. Yes, Joey indicated government was directed not to cut services, but at the same time, we've got the concept of cost recovery. So it means for those services that are not being paid for, municipalities are suffering. So we need to find common ground. National government has come in, but the funding that has been brought is not enough. As you saw, the announcement was 20 billion. Part of it was reprioritization money, which was already sitting with municipalities under different programs such as MIG. And in the end, there's about 12 billion that has been allocated as part of the 20 billion. We thank the national government for that, but more is required, and we need to be more prudent in our approach in terms of cost cutting and to create the savings. We saw our secondary cities are the ones that are suffering the most. That's where the bulk of the population lives, and that's where the bulk of the job losses are happening, meaning we are going to suffer even more, and the need then to be more prudent is clear. We need to continue providing services, water, sanitation. Those are key services that we cannot not put aside or defer. We need to ensure communities have water and sanitation is provided. So we need to work together as communities to make sure government continues to survive under the circumstances. We would not want a situation where salaries cannot be paid or municipalities totally collapse. So on that note, let me ask the chair of SALGA, Mkhulisi, to take us through the innovative ways in which municipalities can provide relief to overburdened consumers and business. Thank you, Mam Mkhulisi. Over to you. You've got 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator, DTG Mkuchini. Let me take this opportunity as well to greet the MEC for cooperative governance, but also enjoy to greet the panelists that have been presenting before me. I'm aware and I want to try my best to be within the 15 minutes as allocated to my two slots of presentation on the role of councillors in COVID-19 world, and on the second one on the innovations required for the local government response to the COVID-19. I want to check, moderator, if my presentation is clear because we could not be able to test it before.
Yes, Ma'am Kolisi, we can see your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will, of course, summarize and not speak to it as it is. But we do want to indicate that from the month of March, when the president spoke and declared the country on the national disaster, of course, ourselves as councillors and local government, there were some directives that were directing us on who is essential and also on what is, of course, essential as part of our responsibility. And in doing that, we've been observing the lockdown levels according to the directives that were coming through the government gazettes. So that also defines, therefore, the role of the councillors during this critical time. And the role of the councillors in the local government was to play a major role in ensuring that we manage the state of the disaster in our communities, which therefore also demanded that municipalities should be able to rise above circumstances that were as a result of the impact, but also ensure that we keep things calm, in particular as though the people that are at the coalface of government with the communities. We had to put our management teams in all municipalities to be hands-on into the approach towards this critical time. You will also remember that we have been tasked to establish the command centers as according the prescripts that came from the national command, which all municipalities did. Under that, we were able to then move on. Let me quickly be critical and explain on the 6 areas where I thought it is important that we define the role of councillors. Chair. We identified our role because precisely we also must remind everybody, the viewers, that councillors were exempted from the lockdown, and councillors were defined as part of those that had to ensure that they look at the deliveries at almost a daily basis, even during this critical time. It is for that reason that I want to focus myself on the role of councillors during this critical time on the basic services. As I've said, that some of the responsibilities were, of course, being defined as some of the speakers and presenters were speaking to. The issue of water, those were defined as essential. The issue of water, of waste, the removal and collection, issues of electricity and rates and so forth. We had teams within the municipalities that are working within those particular categories on basic services. But in doing that, you will also have to remember that councillors every time were on the ground executing that particular responsibility, but also coming in, focusing itself in terms of consolidating reports through DJOCs, and also through the command centers. But critically to that, we must of course also mention that in doing that, we had to observe the good governance within. Whilst we had frustrations in terms of the unclear role of the oversight, in particular on the impact of the suspension of council meetings and the council structures that provide oversight to everything. But through the command councils, command centers, DJOCs and OSS structures up to the war rooms, we're able to try at that level and worked within the levels that were presented to ourselves from the national command. As we also were providing that, one of the experiences during this critical time was the issue of the resources from the municipalities. We depended almost on our operational budgets, which has to include what was never budgeted for. But we have to adhere and ensure that services are being provided, and also resources to respond to the situation were also had to be provided. For example, in particular, on those workers that were declared as essential, you also have to do some provisions that we did out of that challenge. So we were then, we could not have enough resources but municipalities, many of them in KwaZulu-Natal from the 54, were under distress, but we depended then on the relief grants that were also provided, little as they were, on the donations from private sector also that were coming in, on the issues, and some of the resources that came in from the national command, like in COGTA, like the issue of the water tankers, issues of static tanks in Gulabo Maspala Bangama Water Service Authorities. And when the demands grew, in particular with the Department of Education has to come in, we must of course mention that I believe we are also picking up the positive, because previously there was no working relation between the municipalities and the departments, in particular of education, because education is everywhere, schools are everywhere. So there must be that particular relationship so that municipalities are also able to respond to their need, whilst at the same time we address our issues of revenue. We also have been in addressing the municipal resources. We're given an opportunity to reprioritize our grant to address and respond to the immediate issues that were needed by municipalities. And one role of the councillors was also on awareness, where we also have to use all what we can to communicate with our communities with a number of messages, and some that were coming from command centers, some that were coming from the communicators, circulars, and also on the directives to probably make our people aware on behalf of the government, had to promote the role of what committees through OSS as well and war rooms, and also have been using all the media, say communities, whatever platforms of media, social medias and webinars. We've been using all of that, but also the challenge experienced there in particular on the issues of ICTs, the kind of infrastructure that we have. You will remember that KwaZulu-Natal is mostly made of rural areas. So there's still a large and huge challenge with regard to that. As we do that, we must also indicate that in our communication, it was critical that we are everywhere so that people get the messages of the precautionary measures. And also we have to be able to simplify some of the things that needed to be done immediately once the president and all upper structures have spoken to. We had that responsibility. So it is important for us that moving forward, even from now, we ensure that we strengthen the kind of communication that we have, but at the same time, we work with everybody, each stakeholder, to ensure that infrastructure, in particular also on ICT and whatever measures, is also considered. And I think that also will be able to help us in being able to prepare ourselves and work in such a critical time. One of the things that I think it is important is on the rapid response, because you will know that once there were all of these kinds, there were huge demands in the communities. Everybody wanted to be provided with whatever that there's been pronounced either by the president or by which structure. On those many issues, we had to be able to respond to the high demand of water in the areas, because everybody is locked down and at home. So the consumption of water, consumption of everything, even on food, everybody who come with any need will come to a councillor. So then the role of councillor become critical, but at the same time, we must mention that at this particular point on the community participation and also on how we've been perceived, we've even been given names when things were not going okay on issues of social relief. You will find the name of councillors, whilst we may say in few areas we have observed that some of our own colleagues have been probably under pressure, we're being named of not having provided leadership in that particular area. But I think it is also important that our rapid response teams, as part of Essential, had to be there so that they assist on a number of things. On the community participation, they have to be there, and municipalities had to be visible in all times on awareness campaigns, on dissemination of information, on ensuring that everywhere when there are activities, in particular assisting the pay points with SASA, on promoting social distancing everywhere they are, and ensuring that we give and provide information. But at the same time, we have to assist all stakeholders and all other other community activities in the ranks in terms of ensuring that all those areas are being sanitized. The councillors will find all of them in all of those ways. Having said the 60 of the aspects within the role of councillors because of time, I believe that also, let me quickly go to the second one. The second one is on the innovative ways in which municipalities can provide relief to overburden consumers and businesses. I think we must put a preamble to this before I shoot down to what has been the provision across the country on how we can, as municipalities, provide and build the innovation out of the points I will be able to take you through. But I want to say, as I say, that the impact on the revenue generation for municipalities is huge. I'm very much happy because the presenters, the panelists already have mentioned that point. So I'm not going to bother you with that, but I want to say, out of that particular distress, we are able to, some municipalities have already made their attempts and provided guidance in terms of how we are looking forward to assist and how we already have assisted businesses and consumers within our own communities. But not to mention, as I mentioned, that it does not mean that it is one size for all for municipalities, because municipalities are not the same. But on payment holidays for rates only, this is what has been the guide and what we are following as municipalities, that payment holidays where there is sufficient proof provided that customers are financially impacted, for 6 months relief for business and 12 months relief for domestic. But as we do that, there are negotiations that particular affected a customer must negotiate with the municipality. On the interest raised will be written off, for saying that it can be written off or not raised at all during the COVID-19 period. And on that slide, it's about the suspension of credit control measures and suspension of prepaid blocking. On the next one, it's on existing customers on payment plans that may be cancelled on the acknowledgement of debt and renegotiate between the two parties, to suspend deposits that are being raised, or where they have been raised, they can be reversed if we agree in the process of negotiation. And deposits being held be used to offset current debt during COVID-19, and the deposit can be raised at a later stage. And to relax the requirements of the indigent policy, in particular to include those that have lost their jobs where they are not getting any salaries. Some are being paid by UIF and some have just lost the jobs, and there is no definite time of when will they be re-employed again. On extended payment terms for COVID debt, we also are saying municipalities can then be able to discuss in some of those areas where they have not yet with the consumers or business. On the next slide, as I'm about to finish, moderator, I want also to say the above relief does, however, come at a cost to municipalities. As you will all know, MEC, that the issue of cash flow has been an issue amongst municipalities from the beginning of COVID-19. When we started, some municipalities were even taking very hard even to be able to pay their employees. And that negative impact towards our own cash flow is then also through what we are introducing as innovative ways to inform municipality in providing the relief of overburdened consumers and business, but also it impacts negatively to municipalities. But we are hoping, of course, that through the debts that are being owed to municipalities by national and provincial government, probably we may also be able to come up and receive some of those debts to the coffers and to the purses of the municipality. We're aware that we have pressure from the entities like ESCOM and water boards, but we do not have, we're under distress even in terms of how do we ensure that we behave ourselves in paying in services and servicing those debts from our side. But during this period, we want to believe that the government departments are going to be able to pay timely and assist municipalities with the cash flow. And as we say that, we are comfortable that this evening there is also a meeting from the provincial treasury, I'm sure, with COGTA and ourselves, that also begins to discuss on these matters so that they do not impact negatively, whilst we try on our side to be innovative in terms of relieving the overburden to our consumers and business. But on the other side, we're being paid by those that owes us. I believe that I've tried my best, moderator, MEC panelists, and participants, to observe your 15 minutes. Moderator, I thank you.
Thank you to the chair of SALGA. That was very clear. Local government has been working, and local government continues to work to provide services to the communities. Councillors were deemed essential services, and they provided the rapid response that was expected in the provision of services that includes water and working with social development for social relief. We thank local government for those efforts, and also the fact that DCCs continue to work, the district command councils continue to work, and they meet on a weekly basis, at least to coordinate service delivery. Let's commend municipalities for that good work. And as we move into the actual implementation of the district development model, we are going to see this coordination being enhanced. We have a few questions from the floor that have been forwarded to us. The panelists are going to respond, and I think it's mostly for the two panelists, which is Mr. Duma and Ms. Krishnan. We only have a few minutes left before we are cut off in our session. So can I hand over to the two to respond to the questions that have been sent to the group? I'm not going to repeat the questions. If you can then quickly go through the issue of the informal economy, the issue of funding for SMME facilities as part of the informal economy support, as well as the issue of water delivery, which is underway, and the issue of the selective manner in which ward committees and communities have been provided with food parcels. What was the criteria? Political parties were interfering. How do we deal with that? Mr. Stelo, the issue of the virtual meetings, how do we then ensure the communities are involved, and how do we also record and ensure the attendance is recorded in line with what is envisaged in the policies for council meetings? I think those are the questions that we have. If the two can quickly respond before we close the session. We've got 5 minutes to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I'll go first. I think the question we received was from a YouTube watcher, Tokozisi Kumalo, and also from the senior manager from Sanduzi municipality around local economic development, and what relief or support is there for informal traders in particular. So there's two elements to look at, and the question is qualified around the space and the social distancing element. So I think informal traders really are dealt with in terms of the municipal bylaws, and municipalities generally on their budgets make provision for local economic development and for support for small traders in particular. You'll also note that the local government will provide for space for local traders. This means that we'll have to relook at the space that we are using for local traders. And we've got space within municipalities that we can reallocate for local traders to trade. But we've got to open up the informal trading market so that that economy also is revived. And so therefore we should be looking at land or areas. We should actually be relaxing our conditions of not trading in certain areas, et cetera, and support that. We should look at social distancing, and we should look at the element of cleansing in these particular areas to support our local traders. Chair, then we have a question particularly from Jozini municipality in respect of businesses on Ingonyama Trust land not paying for property rates. So we've gotten a legal opinion on this as a department, and really the Property Rates Act allows for every user of land to pay. The definition of owner is not registered owner. It could be somebody who has a lease. It could be somebody who holds a PTO on Ingonyama Trust land. And the municipality can therefore take on these businesses to say, in terms of the law, you are required to pay, and this is the property rates associated with that portion of land. So we will support the municipality in those endeavors, because we really believe that all those who are liable to pay and able to pay must pay their rates. Otherwise, it is these businesses and these people that are actually stealing food out of the mouths of our poor people. So we will certainly deal with that issue. Chair, I think those are the questions that I have received directly. There have been some on the chat group, which we will also respond to in writing possibly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Duma. Is there anything you'd like to add on the questions that have been posted? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. On the question of public participation or community involvement in meetings, there are various instruments that allow for that, and I don't think we have the time to discuss them, but we can discuss them at a later stage. There's a question on attendance registers. The tools that we are using at the moment do allow for the recording, and the recording are accepted as proof of attendance. There's also a question on types of municipalities, which I do not believe we will have time to address at the moment, because it's a lengthy discussion that on its own. But on the question of food parcels, I would probably suggest, Chairperson, that you ask the MEC to comment on that one. I don't think I have anything to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a good comment from Mr. Sibosiso Stole, the former municipal manager for eThekwini. He's been assisting Msunduzi. He's currently assisting in Ugu. His comment relates to the challenge of cybersecurity and the increase of hacking. Mr. Duma did allude to that in his presentation, but can we then just get a comment on how we will move forward in terms of this aspect of cybersecurity?
Perhaps I can comment, Chair, in terms of cybersecurity. It's obviously an area of high specialization. There are various resources within the country that can do this. There are also standards of information management that have been set by national government and also by the State Information Technology Agency. The Auditor General, when they look into municipal systems, operating systems, whether they are financial or whether it is their normal communication system, their internet, they look at issues of security. But certainly we feel, and issues of IT governance. So IT governance is audited by the Auditor General SA, and in the province on IT governance, we didn't fare too badly in the last year. About 86% of our municipalities did reasonably okay. But there is still room for improvement. And it certainly is an area of high specialization, which as we move into the fourth industrial revolution, we will need to invest more in. And of course, at this time, money is tight, but we will certainly look at dealing with it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. We've come to the end of our session. It's 3:30. I'll hand over to the Chair of SALGA to thank our participants and to thank the guests. But before I do that, I think let me just also thank the MEC for COGTA for allowing us to host this webinar and also giving us directives on how this should pan out. I think we are learning a lot as we move forward, and this is one of the webinars that are groundbreaking. We will be having more webinars moving forward. The MEC has also directed that we have a webinar that deals specifically with issues of water. So it's something that we are putting together, and we are hoping to get good participants and good questions in order to respond to the issues on the ground in relation to the water issues and the water master plan. I think from this webinar, the message is very clear. Service delivery has to continue despite the lockdown. Municipalities are ready and they are working, and councillors are also doing their oversight role under the difficult circumstances. And we need to acknowledge that we've all been forced to leapfrog into the fourth industrial revolution. By force, some have gone in it screaming and kicking. It's unfortunate, but that's how it has turned out. We're slow in our response to 4IR, and COVID-19 came to force us to move on. We've also we are clear we need to partner as government, civil society and business in order to comprehensively respond to the issues of COVID-19, and the economy is going to suffer even more. So we need to then work together as partners in order to get a recovery of the economy. We need to be prudent, especially in terms of the implementation of credit control. And we are saying those that can pay for services, they should continue to do so. And we will then support those that cannot pay. The message is also clear. We need to continue social distancing. We need to put on our masks, wash our hands, sanitize, and pay for services. Over to you, Mam Mkhotlisi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DTG. I think you have already said it all, but it is fine because you also afforded me for such an opportunity to first and foremost thank the MEC for having been innovative himself and be visionary to facilitate and organize with the team such a groundbreaking initiative. And I believe that it is going to assist all of us. We must also thank the viewers and for their contributions and the presenters that have been here, because it shows that we must all of us now move from the usual practices that we are used to, but be able to adopt the new normal. That means you move from the abnormal situations that we find ourselves during the COVID, but adapt to the new normal. And I think such initiative is one of the indications that everybody must be ready to do that. We are appreciating that yourselves, you are leading us in that, so that we're able as municipalities to follow the suit immediately. If you see yourselves doing that, we are committing ourselves in that regard, that we have to continuously empower our councils in all our municipalities and participate as a critical stakeholder with the COGTA and be able to ensure that such new normal is being adapted and adopted by everybody within the sector of local government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mam Mkhotlisi. I would not be able to speak after the MEC. Thank you to everyone on the floor. Can I hand over to the MEC to close? And thank you all for your participation.
Thank you, moderator. We want to thank the chair of SALGA, or panel members, the viewers. I think the chair of SALGA have tried to close the meeting on our behalf because we agreed that she will close the meeting, but I want to emphasize that indeed the service delivery is not under lockdown. We must continue to provide services to our people because we have a responsibility to service our communities as we are a caring government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.